Chairman Bishop, I want to begin by thanking you and your staff for the hard work you have put into this bill. You have been a gentleman, tough when you need to be, but always open and fair.
Wait, would you say that one more time? I'll give you an extra 15 seconds, especially after last night. Would you say that just one more time?
You have been a gentleman, tough when you need to be, but always open and fair. I know the responsibility you have been handed is heavy and at times thankless, but you and I and our colleagues should not lose sight of the stakes here and never forget how much what we're doing matters to regular people, whether it is a teacher in Aguadilla, a doctor in Ponce, a policeman in Mayagüez, or a special needs student in Caguas, or a middle-class family in San Juan or Salt Lake City who bought a Puerto Rico government bond and is concerned about their investment. If we cannot get a balanced, bipartisan bill to the president's desk, the consequences for Puerto Rico and the island's creditors are likely to be grave. Trust me, there are provisions in this bill that I dislike, and there are items not in the bill, like equity under Medicaid and refundable tax credits, that I believe should have been included. It is easy to object to a bad provision in a bill, or to the exclusion of a good provision from a bill, and therefore to say no to a bill. But I respect those on both sides of the aisle who are looking at the bill holistically and working hard to get to a yes. The broad question I will pose to our witnesses today is this: does the bill achieve its intended purpose, which is to help Puerto Rico address its current crisis and create the foundation for a brighter future? Let me break the bill down into its component parts. First, Title I and Title II establish a 7-member temporary independent oversight board subject to strong ethics and conflict of interest rules, given specific responsibilities that will terminate once certain conditions are satisfied. Chairman Bishop and I worked together on those titles. And while this point is subject to reasonable debate, I believe these titles are a dramatic improvement over the earlier version of the bill, and now more or less strike the appropriate balance between effectiveness in instilling fiscal discipline and respect for the democratic process. The board's main function is to provide broad oversight over fiscal policymaking in Puerto Rico. The board will provide guardrails for the government of Puerto Rico, but in no way supplant the territory's elected leaders. The governor will be responsible for developing a long-term fiscal plan, and the governor and legislative assembly will be responsible for crafting annual budgets in line with that fiscal plan, subject to the board's ultimate approval. During the fiscal year, compliance with the budget will be monitored, and any material variances between what was projected to occur and what is actually occurring will be identified, and Puerto Rico's elected leaders will have multiple opportunities to take remedial action as they deem appropriate. In short, the board will have a supervisory role and will only assume a more active, hands-on role as a last resort. I will ask the witnesses whether they believe the board's powers are properly calibrated. Second, Section 206, Title III, Title IV, taken together, provide Puerto Rico with a debt restructuring mechanism. Section 407 provides the territory government with a temporary stay of litigation, which, let me underscore, is intended to create an environment for consensual negotiations with creditors, not to encourage otherwise avoidable defaults. Under the collective action provision in Title VI, the Oversight Board will help debt issuing entities in Puerto Rico and their creditors to try to reach voluntary agreements to restructure debt. If any entity reaches an agreement with a sufficient number of creditors who will be grouped into pools or classes, that agreement will become binding on all the creditors in that pool. However, if an agreement cannot be reached, the board may authorize the entity to go to court and adjust debt using the bankruptcy code provisions that apply in every state in the nation. So you see, the board is overseeing the debt restructuring mechanism. I will ask the witnesses, especially Mr. Wise, about these provisions of the bill, whether they are workable And if not, what changes need to be made to make them work? Let me just give you the bottom line. This is the bottom line. My constituents and I will accept this oversight, provided, let me say again, provided we also get a meaningful debt restructuring mechanism, unless I get the witnesses and experts on this, starting with Treasury, to vouch that the debt restructuring mechanism in this bill is acceptable and is going to provide the necessary relief to the government of Puerto Rico, I will not go for this bill. And let me emphasize, we need to work both sides of the aisle here. Otherwise, this is not going to happen. Puerto Rico is going to continue deteriorating. People are going to continue migrating to the States. And it's going to be an embarrassment, not only for Puerto Rico, for the United States at large. So that's the bottom line. Let's work this bill. Let's get it done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me now introduce